Hello my dear students, welcome to my English class on Madhu App. Today we will discuss the paragraphs from 16 to 25 of the chapter The Priceless Gift. Before our discussion, let's see the recapitulation of our last class. Okay students? Recapitulation of paragraph 8 to 10. The next Saturday, the writer went to the same restaurant again. He saw the girl sitting at the same table. He was able to start conversation by making one brief remark after another. The girl's brother was an Indian soldier. What was the girl's brother? The girl's brother was an Indian soldier. Her only guardian was her brother. She lived with her old widowed mother, Mrs. Betty. Who was Mrs. Betty? Mrs. Betty was the girl's mother. Okay, then recapitulation of paragraph 11 to 15. Her mother was greatly worried about her brother for not having heard from him for a long time. Soon they finished their lunch and came to the place where she lived. The girl told him her name on the way to her home. She requested him to enter the home. Who requested? The girl requested the writer to enter the home. They descended the stairs and got into the kitchen. Then, let's discuss the paragraph 16 to 25. Before our discussion, let's go for modal reading. Okay? Mother, said Maggie, from the doorway, an Indian gentleman has come to see you. Where is he? The old woman asked eagerly. With a smile, I stepped into the kitchen behind Maggie. She introduced us. How do you do? I said and held out my hand. Excuse me, my hands are covered with flour. I am making cakes. People will come to buy them this evening. This is the way we make our living, lots of trouble. Then, next paragraphs. Saturday night is a time of festivity in poor neighborhoods. All kinds of things are sold on this night. The streets are more crowded than any other day. This is the day when they are able to spend a little from their weekly wages. What kind of country is India, sir? Asked Mrs. Betty as she resumed her cooking. A beautiful country. Safe to live in. Aren't there too many snakes and tigers? Don't they kill people? Okay, then next. This type of question has often been asked. Don't believe that snakes and tigers are killed by the people if they come too close. My son is in the Punjab. He is a soldier. What kind of place is the Punjab? The Punjab is a fine place. It is a very healthy place to live in. I am glad to hear it, Mrs. Betty said. Okay, student? Then, her baking was finished. Maggie, she said, take Mr. Gupta upstairs. I will wash my hands and bring tea. As we drank tea, I talked about India. Mrs. Betty showed me a photograph of her son. It had been kept very neatly in an envelope by the mother. His name was Frankie. Okay? Then we will discuss some meanings of some new words. Okay, students? Listen me carefully and write down. Eagerly means excitedly, impatiently. Then trouble means difficulty or problem. Then festivity means occasion of celebration or observation. Then resume means, what do you mean by resume? Start again. Then glad means happy or joy. Okay students, let's discuss the paragraphs line by line. Mother, said Maggie, from the doorway, an Indian gentleman has come to see you. Means Maggie told her mother from the doorway that an Indian gentleman had come to see her. Where is he? The old woman asked eagerly. With a smile, I stepped into the kitchen behind Maggie. Means the old woman, means Mrs. Betty, the girl's mother, asked eagerly, impatiently, where the writer was. With a smile, I stepped into the kitchen behind Maggie. Means, meanwhile, the writer stepped into the kitchen behind Maggie with a smile. She introduced us. How do you do? I said, and held out my hand. Means Maggie introduced both Mrs. Betty and the writer with each other. Then writer asked Mrs. Betty how she was and held out his hand for handshake. Excuse me, my hands are covered with flour. I am making cakes. People will come to buy them this evening. This is the way we make our living, lots of trouble. Means Mrs. Betty was unable to handshake with the writer because her hands were covered with the flour. Her hands were covered with the flour as she was making cakes. Why was she making cakes? Yes, because people would come to buy them that evening. This is the way we make our living, lots of trouble. Means that is the way they live their lives with lots of problems. Means they have so many problems, so many troubles. They are unhappy. Next, okay. Why did Mrs. Betty baking cakes? Because that there was a festival in poor neighborhood that Saturday night. Saturday night is a time of festivity in poor neighborhoods. So, Mrs. Betty was making cakes for that people. All kinds of things are sold on this night. The streets are more crowded than any other day. This is the day when they are able to spend a little from their weekly wages. Means there was a festival in that poor neighborhood on Saturday night, and there were so many things were sold. So many things were sold on that night. The streets were more crowded because so many people were coming and going there. This is the day, that is the day when they were able to spend a little from their weekly wages. Then, what kind of country is India, sir? Asked Mrs. Betty as she resumed her cooking. Means, as she again started her cooking, she asked Mr. Gupta what kind of country India is. A beautiful country. Means Mr. Gupta answered Mrs. Betty that India is a very beautiful country. Safe to live in. Aren't there too many snakes and tigers? Don't they kill people? Again Mrs. Betty asked Mr. Gupta that whether India is safe to live in, whether there were too many snakes and tigers, or whether they kill people or not. Okay? Then this type of question has often been asked. Don't believe that snakes and tigers are killed by the people if they come too close. Means this type of question has often been asked. Means here the writer asked Mrs. Betty that type of question had often been asked. Don't believe that. Here the writer told Mrs. Betty that not to believe that snakes and tigers are killed by the people if they come too close. My son is in the Punjab. He is a soldier. What kind of place is the Punjab? Here Mrs. Betty asked the writer about Punjab, that what kind of place is Punjab? Because her son was in the Punjab and he was a soldier. Who was a soldier? Mrs. Betty's son was a soldier. The Punjab is a fine place. It is a very healthy place to live in. Mr. Gupta told to Mrs. Betty that the Punjab is a fine place. It is a very healthy place to live in. Punjab is a very healthy place to live. It is a very beautiful place to live. I am glad to hear it, Mrs. Betty said. Mrs. Betty told that he was very happy to hear that Punjab is a very good place, very healthy place to live, as her son Frankie was there. Her baking was finished. Maggie, she said, take Mr. Gupta upstairs. I will wash my hands and bring tea. As her baking was finished, she told Maggie to take Mr. Gupta upstairs and she would wash her hands and bring tea for them. Then, as we drank tea, I talked about India. Mrs. Betty showed me a photograph of her son. It had been kept very neatly in an envelope by the mother. His name was Frankie. As they drank tea, they means Mrs. Betty and Mr. Gupta drank tea, Mr. Gupta talked about India. Mrs. Betty showed Mr. Gupta a photograph of her son, which was kept very neatly in an envelope by the mother. And what was his name? His name was Frankie. So who was Frankie? Frankie was Mrs. Betty's son and Maggie's brother. Okay, students, let's discuss the outlines of our today's class. They got into the kitchen. They means Mr. Gupta and Maggie got into the kitchen. Maggie introduced Mr. Gupta to her mother. Her mother was making cakes to be sold on Saturday night, which is a time of festivity in that poor neighborhood. The next, Mrs. Betty asked him about India. He means Mr. Gupta. She also asked about Punjab, where her son was working as a soldier. Who was a soldier? Her son Frankie was a soldier. Mr. Gupta was taken upstairs and they had tea together while he talked about India. Mrs. Betty showed him a photograph of her son. Who showed? Mrs. Betty showed Mr. Gupta a photograph of her son Frankie, which was kept neatly in an envelope. How was the photo is kept in an envelope? It was kept neatly in an envelope. Then we will discuss some question and answers of our discussion. Tick the correct answer. Number 1. Saturday night is a time of festivity in poor neighborhoods. What are the options? All kind of things are sold. The streets are unusually crowded. The people can afford to spend a little from their weekly wages, or all the above. What is the answer? The answer is all the above. Then number 2. Mrs. Betty didn't shake hands with Mr. Gupta as what are the options? She didn't like the Indian gentleman. She didn't approve her daughter's friendship with him. Her hands were covered with flour. She was too ill to do so. Which is the answer? Yes, the answer is her hands were covered with flour. Then number 3. How did Mrs. Betty's family make their living? Yes, students, what are the options? By making clay, by making toys, by making cake, by making chocobar. So what is the answer? Very good. The answer is by making cakes. Then let's discuss some more questions and their answers. Answer the following questions in a word or in a phrase. What are the questions? Number 1. What was Mrs. Betty doing when the writer met her? Yes, who will tell? Very good. The answer is she was baking cakes. The next question. What did the writer tell Mrs. Betty about India? Yes, very good. The answer is India is a very beautiful place. India is a very beautiful place. The next question. Who was the girl's brother? Yes, very good. The answer is Frankie. Okay, this is our today's discussion. Okay, students, bye bye.